My name is Gavin Reyes. I'm 42 years old, and I've spent the last 2 decades sweating in other people's kitchens. I live in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in the middle of Eastbridge, a gray, unforgiving part of the city that smells like old fryer oil and car exhaust. Life was never perfect, but lately, it's been turning bitter in ways I can't ignore anymore. My wife Rochelle and I both work in food. She's the executive pastry chef at this swanky spot downtown called Emberline, all velvet chairs and tiny plates. I'm a sous chef at La Mancha, a Spanish fusion joint just 5 blocks away. On paper, we're the kind of couple who should understand each other. In real life, we pass like strangers. Her shift ends at 2 a.m., mine starts at 4 p.m. The overlap is mostly silence. It started changing about 8 months ago. Rochelle got shinier, new workout gear, new perfume, nails done every week like clockwork. She'd come home from tasting meetings with that glint in her eye she hadn't had for me in years. The first time I asked about it, she said I was being insecure. "You think I dress like this for someone else?" she said, smirking as she pulled her heels off. "Maybe I just like the way I look now." I didn't say anything. I just watched her walk past me, same way she had every night for months. No kiss, no "how was your day?" no warmth. Our 3 kids, Riley, 17, Ava, 15, and Quinn, 13, felt it too. Dinner became takeout containers spread out on the coffee table. No one talked. No one made eye contact. Riley barely came home some nights, and when he did, he went straight to his room with his hoodie pulled up. Ava picked at her food. Quinn played games on his phone with the volume off. I tried asking Rochelle if we could talk. She laughed, like I was making a big deal out of nothing. "We're just in a rut," she said, like that word meant anything anymore. Every couple gets like this. Maybe. But not every couple gets phone notifications that show their wife at the Hyatt bar downtown when she said she was doing late prep at the bakery. I didn't want to believe it at first. I told myself maybe she just needed space. Maybe I was imagining things. But then I started keeping track. Not obsessively, just observantly. The bars. The hours. The way she'd come home tipsy, smelling like hotel soap. I even followed her one night after work, sat in my car down the block, and watched her walk into that same hotel bar in a backless dress she hadn't worn in years. She sat at the bar, sipping something pink, laughing with someone tall in a crisp chef's coat. Even from a distance, I knew who it was. Daniel Kurtz, her boss. The man I'd once shared a kitchen with, years ago, when we were both line cooks pulling 16-hour days. It hit me then, right there in the car, that I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her alibi. That night, I didn't cry. I just went home, opened a blank notebook, and wrote the date. Then I wrote, Rochelle, Hyatt, with Daniel, 10:12 p.m. I didn't know what I was planning yet, but I knew something had to end before I lost everything, including my kids. I didn't plan to say anything that night. It was just supposed to be a regular dinner. Heat up leftovers, try to get the kids to eat something green, maybe sit through one episode of whatever show Quinn was binging. But when I walked in and saw Rochelle already setting the table, something she hadn't done in months, I knew something was off. "Roast chicken," she said, like a host announcing the special. Thought we could all sit down, like old times. The kids looked as confused as I felt. Riley raised an eyebrow but didn't say a word. Ava sat down slowly, like she was bracing for an ambush. Quinn kept his earbuds in, nodding to a beat only he could hear. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. No one reached for seconds. No one asked about anyone's day. We all just chewed and stared at our plates like we were trying to make the food disappear faster. Then Rochelle slammed her fork down. "Seriously? Is this how we're going to act? I try to do something nice, and you all look like you're at a funeral." No one answered. She scoffed, loud and sharp. "I'm so sick of the attitude in this house. You think I don't notice how cold you all are? You kids barely talk to me. And Gavin," she turned toward me, eyes flaring, "you look at me like I'm a stranger." I wiped my mouth slowly with a napkin, then placed it next to my plate. My hands were steady. That surprised me. "You want honesty?" I said, finally looking her in the eye. "Fine. I'm moving out tomorrow." The silence that followed was total. Riley's fork froze midair. Ava's eyes widened. Even Quinn pulled out one earbud. Rochelle blinked. "What?" I nodded. "Me and the kids. We're moving out. I already talked to them." She laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A mean one. Oh, that's rich. You're just going to steal the kids? You think that's how this works? I didn't steal anything, I said calmly. They made the choice. She looked at Riley. Is this true? Riley didn't flinch. You're never here. You don't care what's going on unless it affects you. Ava chimed in, voice soft, but steady. We just want things to be normal again. Quinn didn't say a word, but he stood up, walked to me, and stood beside my chair. That was all I needed. Rochelle's face twisted, like she'd just been slapped. So what, Gavin? You get to be the hero now? The stable parent? I shook my head. No heroes here. Just tired people making a change. She crossed her arms. You're not getting a dime. I'll fight you for custody. I'll make this ugly. You already did, I said. Then I stood up, walked to the hall closet, and grabbed the duffel bag I'd packed earlier. We're staying at my brother's place until I find something permanent. I'll have the rest of our stuff moved out by next week. She didn't follow us out. She didn't say goodbye. When the door shut behind us, I didn't feel relief. I felt hollow, like I'd just walked out of a fire but hadn't realized I was already burned. But the kids were with me, and that was the first right thing I'd done in a long time. My brother Luis lives above a bakery in a part of Eastbridge most people avoid after dark. Broken sidewalks, bars on the windows, and that lingering smell of burnt sugar and car exhaust. But to me, it felt like breathing room. The kids and I crammed into his 2-bedroom apartment. Riley took the pull-out couch. Ava and Quinn shared the room with a bunk bed left over from when Luis's son lived there. I slept on a mattress on the floor next to the water heater. It was tight, loud, and smelled faintly of yeast, but it was ours for now. Luis didn't say much the night we moved in, just handed me a beer and nodded toward the couch. That was his way of saying, "You're good." I appreciated it more than any speech. The next morning, I was up before the sun. Couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts running through my head. About the kids. About Rochelle. About what came next. I walked downstairs to the bakery. The front lights were off, but through the side entrance, I saw movement. Eli, the owner of the Copper Crumb Diner, stood at the grill with a cigarette in his mouth and a greasy rag slung over his shoulder. Well, I'll be damned, he said, seeing me. You look like 10 miles of bad road. I shrugged. Feel like 20. Eli and I used to work together years ago at a steakhouse that went under. He'd always said I had good hands and a deadpan face made for this business. I wasn't sure it was a compliment, but coming from him, it might have been. He handed me a spatula. You want a couple shifts? I need a dishwasher who won't steal the tips. I didn't hesitate. I'm in. The next few weeks were a blur of early mornings, after-school pickups, and greasy prep work. I scrubbed dishes until my knuckles cracked, wiped down fryers, took out trash. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. At night, I helped the kids with homework, cooked simple dinners, spaghetti, eggs on toast, frozen dumplings. Riley thought out first. He'd sit in the kitchen, scrolling on his phone, occasionally showing me a meme or complaining about his English teacher. Ava started helping me with dinner. Quinn still didn't talk much, but he'd sit next to me on the mattress at night and play a mobile game with the volume just loud enough for me to hear. Rochelle called a few times. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Rochelle, you took everything. Hope you're happy. Rochelle, the kids don't respond to me. This isn't fair. Rochelle, I need money for groceries. Can you send something? I left her on read. Eli pulled me aside one night. Look, I'm going to be real with you. This place is bleeding money. But if you can help me overhaul the menu, bring back some of that fire. You can have a cut. Small steak. I blinked. You serious? He nodded. Dead serious. I looked around the diner. Cracked vinyl booths. Flickering lights. A fryer that coughed when you touched it. But I saw potential. Let's do it, I said. Because starting over didn't mean starting small. Not if I could help it. It was a Friday night when Riley brought her home. Kaya. She wore ripped jeans, box braids pulled into a loose bun, and this mustard-colored hoodie that looked 2 sizes too big. She had a quiet confidence about her, didn't fidget, didn't talk too much. Just smiled politely when I opened the door and said, Hey, Mr. Reyes. Thanks for letting me hang out. The kids were planning to watch some horror movie. I told them to keep the volume down and stay out of the bakery's fridge. It wasn't until later, When I was washing up dinner plates, that Riley walked into the kitchen with that sheepish look on his face. Kaya's mom wants to meet you, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Right now. She's in the car. I dried my hands and followed him out to the sidewalk. It was chilly, the street quiet except for a couple arguing across the block. A silver SUV idled at the curb. When Riley opened the passenger door, my stomach dropped. There she was, Serena Mitchell. We dated back in high school. Senior year. Long summer nights, riding the subway just to nowhere. We lost touch the way people do when life picks up speed. She went off to study nursing. I went to culinary school. The last time I saw her, we were standing in front of her dorm, hugging goodbye. I hadn't even known she was pregnant. Hey, she said, stepping out of the car. Her voice was soft. Awkward. Been a long time. I nodded. Yeah, it has. Riley stood between us, clearly confused. You two know each other? Serena didn't answer right away. She looked at me like she was measuring whether to say it here, on this cracked sidewalk, under a streetlight that flickered every 3 seconds. Kaya's mine, she finally said. She's your daughter, Gavin. I didn't move. Couldn't move. For a second, the sound of cars and sirens and the humming street just faded. No, I said, though it came out more as breath than sound. I'm sorry, Serena said quickly. I should have told you. I should have told you years ago. After we broke up, you were already with Rochelle. I didn't want to mess up your life. I turned to Riley, who looked like someone had just unplugged his brain. Wait, what do you mean she's his daughter? Kaya? My girlfriend Kaya? Serena winced. I didn't know they were seeing each other. I swear. Riley backed away, his face pale. So what? We're related. I stepped forward, panic rising in my chest. We didn't know, Riley. No one knew. But we're gonna fix this. I'll get tests done. We'll talk it through. Just come inside, okay? He shook his head. No. Nope. Kaya was out of the apartment by then, standing behind him on the steps, arms folded tightly. She didn't say anything, just looked down at the ground. I need to go, Riley said. Then he turned and walked. Fast. Kaya followed, silent as a shadow. I stood there, alone with Serena under that flickering streetlight. I didn't mean for it to come out like this, she said. You should have told me, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I know, she whispered. We stood in silence for a long time before she got in her SUV and drove away. Back upstairs, the apartment felt like it had been vacuum sealed. Quiet. Too still. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears. And just like that, one night broke 2 families wide open. I didn't sleep that night. I kept pacing the narrow hallway between the kitchen and the bathroom, replaying Serena's voice in my head. She's your daughter, Gavin. That sentence had cracked something in me. Something I didn't even realize was fragile. Around 3 a.m., I finally sat down on the floor next to the stacked laundry baskets and just stared at the wall. My phone buzzed once. Then again. Kaya and Riley had both gone silent after leaving, but Serena had sent a single message. Serena, I'm sorry. I never wanted this to hurt them. Too late for that. The next afternoon, I found Riley sitting on a bench outside the old corner store where we used to buy popsicles in the summer. He didn't look up as I approached. I didn't know, I said. I swear to you, Riley. I had no idea. He rubbed his face, tired and sunken. I liked her. A lot. I thought maybe she was it. I sat beside him. The silence between us wasn't angry. It was heavier than that. I'll pay for a DNA test, I said. For all of us. So we know for sure. Not just Kaya. Riley didn't answer. He just nodded slightly and stared at the sidewalk. When I got back to the apartment, Serena was waiting in her car. I didn't want to talk. I wanted a drink. But I walked over anyway. She rolled down the window. Can I come in? I hesitated, then opened the side door and let her up. Inside, Ava and Quinn were out with Luis. Thank God. Serena stood near the counter, arms folded tight across her chest like she was holding herself together. I messed this up, she said. All of it. I should have told you. You had a right to know. I didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. I just poured a shot of whatever I had left in the cabinet and took it in one swallow. You let me miss 18 years, I said, my voice cracking in the middle. You let me miss her first steps. Her first words. You let her grow up thinking I didn't exist. Serena's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. You had a family. I thought it was better that way. You thought wrong. That was the end of the conversation. She left quietly. Didn't ask for forgiveness. Didn't deserve it. Not yet. That night, I sat in the kitchen with the lights off and poured myself another drink. Then another. I must have fallen asleep on the bakery floor, because when I opened my eyes, sunlight was pouring through the cracked windows and my cheek was stuck to a flour-covered linoleum tile. My head pounded. My tongue felt like sandpaper. But worse than that was the shame. I hadn't been drunk like that in years. I stumbled upstairs, splashed cold water on my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. This wasn't who I wanted to be. Not for Riley. Not for Kaya. Not for any of them. Something had to give. And this time, it was going to be the truth. Riley was the one who said it out loud. If Kaya's my half-sister, how do I know who else I'm even related to? It was a fair question. A brutal one, but fair. We were sitting in the kitchen, plates of untouched breakfast growing cold between us. Quinn was fidgeting with his cereal spoon, and Ava looked like she hadn't slept in days. Riley, on the other hand, was calm. Too calm. I want a DNA test, he said. For all of us. I nodded. Okay. No argument. I shook my head. I'll pay for everything. We'll go to a lab, not some sketchy mail-in thing. Ava gave me a look. You think Mom would even agree to this? I'll handle her, I said. And I did. I texted Rochelle that afternoon. She didn't answer. So I called. I'm not giving you anything, she snapped. You already poisoned the kids against me. I'm not asking, I said, keeping my voice low and steady. I'll pay for your panel too. It'll save us all a lot of grief later. She hung up. But 2 days later, a manila envelope showed up at my door with a lab logo on the return address and a sticky note in her handwriting. Fine. But don't contact me again. I went with all 3 kids myself. Signed the paperwork. Swabbed cheeks. Paid the bill up front. When the results came in a week later, I waited until everyone was home before I opened them. Ava and Quinn? Both mine. No question. Kaya? Also mine. Riley? I read his page 3 times. Then handed it to him. He stared at it. His face didn't change. You're not my biological dad, he said flatly. Not asking. Just stating it like he was reading the weather. No, I said. Ava covered her mouth. Quinn looked down at his feet. Kaya stood in the corner, frozen. I waited for the explosion. Riley had every right to scream. Instead, he just asked, did Mom know? I nodded. I think so. I asked her about it. What did she say? She cried. Wouldn't give me a name. But I offered her money. You bribed her. I gave her money in exchange for honesty, I said. And she gave me a list. 3 names. He didn't ask to see it. He just stood up and walked out. Later that night, I got a voicemail from Rochelle. I never meant for it to go this far, she said. Her voice cracked halfway through. He wasn't planned. It was a stupid weekend. I thought if I loved him enough, it wouldn't matter. I didn't delete it. But I didn't call her back either. Instead, I opened the envelope again and pulled out the list. 3 names. 1 circled. Ethan Voss. I recognized it immediately. He was a food critic. A damn good one. Rochelle had trained under him when she was fresh out of culinary school. That explained the gifts he'd sent her over the years. The late-night text she never let me see. The weekend retreat they'd both attended back in '07. I poured a drink. Didn't sip it. Just stared at the glass and wondered how much of my life had been built on someone else's recipe. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I don't regret it. After I got the DNA results and that list from Rochelle, I knew I wasn't going to get closure just by sitting in my apartment staring at walls. So I made a call to someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade. My cousin Jesse. Jesse's one of those guys who's always between jobs. Last I heard, he was doing security consulting, which was code for digging through people's trash and following cheating spouses with a cracked phone and a notepad. But he had one gift. He could find anyone. I need dirt, I told him. 3 names. 2 are throwaways. 1 matters. I texted him the list. A week later, he came back with a smirk and a folder. First guy? Drug habit. Lives off his girlfriend. No way he's funding college. Second guy? Had a vasectomy 15 years ago. You're welcome. And the third? Jesse tossed a glossy magazine onto the diner counter in front of me. Ethan Voss, food critic extraordinaire, smiling like he'd just invented taste buds. Big name. Still lives in Chicago. Got a place in River North. Married. 2 kids. And yes, DNA matches. I didn't ask how Jesse got a sample. I didn't want to know. I took the folder home and stared at it for hours. My gut wanted revenge. I pictured barging into one of Ethan's high-end tastings, slapping the test results onto the linen draped table, and saying, "Congratulations, you're a dad, asshole." But I didn't do that. Instead, I wrote him a letter. Typed. Clean. Straight to the point. Mr. Voss. You don't know me, but you should. My name is Gavin Reyes. I was married to Rochelle Santino for 19 years. We raised 3 kids together, including a son named Riley. Based on recent DNA results and a detailed timeline, I now believe you are Riley's biological father. I'm not looking to blow up your life. I'm not asking for a relationship. But Riley is applying to college, and he deserves every opportunity. You've got the resources. The least you can do is help the kid whose existence you helped create. No lawyers. No press. Just decency. Think about it. I mailed it to his office. Registered mail. No return address. A week later, a cashier's check arrived at the bakery in a plain envelope. It was for $60,000. No note. That same day, I filed paperwork to reclaim ownership of the apartment building Rochelle had walked away from last year when she moved in with her boyfriend. Turns out, she never updated the lease. Technically, she'd left the place in my name, and with enough back taxes owed to make it vulnerable to auction. I paid it off. Took ownership. Changed the locks. It felt good. Not vengeful. Just balanced. That night, I took Riley out for burgers. He didn't say much, but when I told him I'd set aside college money in his name, his eyes welled up a little. Was it him? He asked. I nodded. You gonna tell him? No, I said, but I made sure he knows who you are. Riley just nodded. Cool. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was living someone else's life. I was starting to reclaim mine, piece by piece. It started with a late-night text from Serena. Serena, Kaya wants to come by, just to talk. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, me. She's always welcome. 2 days later, Kaya showed up at the bakery apartment. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, but her voice was steady. Is it okay if I stay here for a bit? She asked. Things with Mom are tense. I nodded. You want to talk about it? She shook her head. Not yet. Ava came out of her room and hugged her tight. Quinn gave her a nod from the couch. No one asked questions. It just worked, like a puzzle piece sliding quietly into place. Serena came by the next evening. She brought chili and cornbread, and a look in her eyes I hadn't seen in 20 years. She helped me clean the kitchen after dinner. Neither of us said much. Just moved around each other like old rhythms coming back. The next week, she helped me revamp the diner's books. Eli had officially offered me a partnership, 15% to start, more if we hit certain targets. We decided to relaunch the menu and rebrand the place. That's how Spoon and Fire was born. I cooked. Serena managed the books and negotiated with suppliers like a shark in Scrubs. Riley helped design a logo. Ava picked paint swatches. Kaya did mock-ups for a food blog and Instagram page. Even Quinn pitched in, writing sarcastic captions for our online posts that somehow went viral. We gutted the place over 2 weekends. Painted walls, ripped out ancient booths, replaced flickering light bulbs with warm Edison-style ones. When we finally reopened, we did it quietly. No ribbon cutting. Just a chalkboard sign that said, "Come see what we cooked up." And people came. Old regulars. New neighbors. A few curious foodies who'd heard a whisper about the little diner with the octopus risotto. I worked 16-hour days and came home smelling like garlic and sweat. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel tired. I felt fed. Then Rochelle called. Her voice was small, careful. I heard about the restaurant, she said. Congrats. I waited. I'd like to see the kids. If that's still allowed. They're old enough to decide for themselves, I said. She paused. I lost everything, Gavin. Daniel left. The job let me go. I don't even have a car. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. Not out of love. Out of pity. Do they hate me? She asked. I didn't answer. She'd have to find out on her own. That weekend, Rochelle came by the diner. Ava sat with her for 20 minutes. Quinn waved from behind the kitchen door but didn't say a word. Riley? He stayed home. Kaya stayed by my side the whole time. Afterward, I found Serena sitting outside on a milk crate, sipping tea from a paper cup. She looks older, she said. We all do. Serena glanced at me. I was thinking of moving closer. Maybe even moving in. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, the kids would like that. She smiled. And you? I looked at her. Really looked. I would too. Inside, the new family we built, patched together from years of silence and mistakes, laughed over stacked plates and shared fries. Kaya had her laptop open, editing a blog post. Riley had his arm slung around Quinn, talking college prep. Ava sat beside Serena, arguing about TikTok recipes. And me? I was home. Riley found the letter in the mail one quiet Tuesday afternoon. It was a thick cream-colored envelope, no return address, just his name written in careful black ink. He opened it at the kitchen counter while I was chopping herbs. He read it silently, then slid it across the counter toward me. Inside was a typed letter and a check. Dear Riley, I owe you a better start than what I gave you. Your father is a good man, and I was a coward. Use this for your future. No strings attached. Evie. The check was made out for full tuition to the state university Riley had just been accepted to, plus room and board. Riley didn't say much. He just nodded once and said, guess that's closure. I didn't argue. He folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his backpack. That same week, my divorce from Rochelle was finalized. No lawyers, no drawn-out fights. Just a notary, 2 witnesses, and a pair of signatures. I walked out of that government office with a manila envelope and nothing but debt assigned to her name. For the first time in almost 20 years, I was legally free. 2 nights later, Serena and I sat on the bakery rooftop, legs dangling over the ledge, passing a bottle of wine between us. I was thinking, she said, about moving in full-time. I looked at her, careful. You sure? It's messy in here. She laughed softly. I'm not expecting Nate. Just real. Real I can do. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Kaya wants it. The kids are already family. We just have to make it official. I let the silence settle between us. It wasn't hesitation anymore. It was gratitude. Peace. The kind that doesn't come easy and never comes cheap. I'd like that, I said. All of it. The next night, we made dinner for everyone, 5 kids now, technically. Kaya had taken over Serena's old desk in the apartment, and Quinn had finally started speaking to her like a sibling instead of a guest. Ava was helping Riley polish his college application essays, and they bickered the whole time like they'd known each other forever. We made baked ziti and garlic bread, set out mismatched plates, and everyone grabbed a seat wherever they could. Riley raised his glass of ginger ale. To closure, he said. Kaya smirked. And new beginnings. Quinn added, and no more weird family surprises, please. Everyone laughed. And for the first time, it wasn't forced. It wasn't perfect. But it was honest. Ours. After dinner, I stood at the sink doing dishes, watching the kids lounge in the living room, swapping stories and teasing each other. Years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. But standing there, soap on my hands, the sound of laughter echoing through a once-empty apartment, I realized something simple and powerful. I didn't lose my family. I found them. The diner was full. Not packed, not chaotic, just full in that warm, buzzing way where every table's taken and the air smells like garlic, butter, and something sweet you can't quite name. The neon sign out front now reads Spoon and Fire in Kai's looping script, and someone from the East Bridge Weekly was snapping photos near the bar for a spotlight piece they were doing on resilient local businesses. I didn't care about the write-up. I cared that Quinn was in the back prepping vegetables like a pro, Ava was helping Serena tally receipts, and Riley was at table 4 giving a college-bound high schooler advice on culinary school applications. And Kaya? She was across the room, laughing with a food blogger and managing the social media handle she'd built from 0 to 5,000 followers in under 2 months. One of her photos had gone mini-viral, a slow pan over our house risotto, steam curling up in a perfect swirl. People came in just to order it now. That risotto had been my signature dish for years, but I'd never written it down. Not until that morning. I sat at the counter before opening hours and scribbled the steps into a small leather notebook Serena had given me. On the last page, I wrote, for Riley, Ava, Quinn, Kaya, and whoever comes next. This is more than food. It's what brought us back. Dad. Serena found me hunched over the counter, pen still in hand. She was glowing, actually glowing. And I didn't think it was just the morning light hitting her right. I took the test, she said, grinning. I blinked. What test? She held up a little white stick with 2 faint pink lines on it. I stared at it, then at her. My mouth opened, but no words came out. "You okay?" she asked, suddenly nervous. I nodded, too fast. Yeah, I just, well, surprised. More like overwhelmed. In the good way. She slipped onto the stool beside me and placed her hand over mine. "I want this," she said. "With you. With all of us." I kissed her right there at the counter, the scent of coffee and chives floating in the air between us. Later that night, we had one of those impromptu family dinners where nothing matched and nobody cared. Kaya made spicy chicken sliders that Quinn insisted were too spicy while shoving 3 into his mouth. Ava tried to teach Riley a TikTok dance and almost sprained her wrist. Serena sat with her feet up, smiling like she already knew the baby's name. We passed the risotto around like communion. Everyone had seconds. Afterward, I handed Ava the notebook. "What's this?" she asked. "It's the recipe," I said. She flipped through the pages, eyebrows rising. "You finally wrote it down?" I nodded. "It's for all of you." She hugged me tight, silent, real. As the laughter echoed off the walls and the lights dimmed down for closing, I leaned back in my chair and took it all in. This messy, loud, rebuilt family was the life I thought I'd lost. And somehow it had come back richer, deeper, stronger. Like the perfect dish simmered just a little longer.